This is the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Hello, welcome back to the Bristol Flyers Podcast. It's a snow day.
Do you know what the worst thing? It's the worst type of snow day, Joel, because there's snow, but we still had to come to work. I wanted to go out in the fields, a bit of sledging, but not today, unfortunately.
Yeah, we still have to work here on the Flyers Podcast. I tell you what, it's not like, the UK always shuts down when it snows, but no, we keep it going here on the podcast.
Is it still snowing right now? I think it might be.
I don't know. I think it may have slowly started drifting off. Apparently, it's supposed to get really bad later on, though, so we will see about that.
Love it.
I'm Joel Osborne. He is Sam Hardy, as always. And Sam, big news for the Flyers this week because they've officially clinched their place in the BBL playoffs.
That is actually... This is the earliest we've ever done it. That's true, isn't it?
Yep. 10 games to spare. Amazing achievement. Everyone's getting behind the Flyers, right? The BBL team right now. Huge comeback win over Newcastle on Friday to clinch that spot in the playoffs, which we will talk about a little bit later in the podcast. In dramatic fashion, and as you say, everyone's getting behind the Flyers. We've had tweets of support. We've even had a tweet from the mayor, Marvin Rees, has been on the Twitter. He's tweeted us. He tweeted us saying huge congratulations to the Bristol Flyers and Coach Kapoulas for making the BBL playoffs with 10 games to go. What an outstanding season so far. You're doing Bristol proud.
Well, he's actually been down a few times in the past, hasn't he?
He has. He's been down to a number of Flyers games, and he's been really supportive of the Flyers with their with their ongoing campaign to get into that new arena down at Ashton Gate. So big fan is Marvin. So thanks for the shout out on Twitter. We had another tweet. This time was from David at Habu. He is the head of brand for our principal partner, front of shirt sponsor at Habu, and he tweeted after the game on Sunday. People often ask me, hey, David, how you have a pretty hectic schedule. How do you stay in peak physical condition? And he goes, well, my answer is always the same. I get the cheese and meat section with a Thatcher's Gold at the Bristol Flyers.
That is...
Hashtag Fitspiration, hashtag high performance, hashtag marginal gains.
Yeah, that is what our players eat actually on a daily basis. It's all they eat actually, isn't it, Joel? Thatcher's cheese and a selection of meats. Delicious.
Massive shout out to Dave and the guys at Habu for their continued support of the club. And if you want your tweet to be featured on the Bristol Flyers podcast, do send them in. We want to hear, how do you like to enjoy Flyers basketball? Maybe tweet us in at Bristol Flyers and we'll feature them on next week's episode. How do you like to enjoy Flyers basketball, Sam?
I very much like to enjoy it from behind the microphone, Joel. Very much so.
Same here.
I tell him every time, mate, I need people to be hearing my voice because of my insecurities. I say it every time. I want people to hear my voice, Joel. I love it.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Great stuff. We'll talk about both of those games, as we say, in more detail later on in the podcast. But this week, we are turning our attention to the Flyers women's programme, and we are celebrating International Women's Day. And joining us in the studio this week, we are very pleased to be joined by two amazing women in the Bristol Flyers programme. They are none other than our WBBL stars, Chloe Hinett and Sarah Birkett. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us, but I can't believe you've actually just butchered my name. You know it's Hinett.
Chloe, I've always called you Chloe Hinett. The Hinnetts, that's what I always said.
Do you know what? I got in so much trouble because it was Chloe's birthday a while back and I had to do a shout out and I asked Mike how to say your surname because I just never heard it before and he said Hinett as well. So that's Mike Edkins' fault.
Yeah, Mike has always said Chloe Hinett.
Your mum, can you imagine, had a big go at me?
Oh yeah, 100%. She's corrected me a few times and I still butcher it, so.
There we go. Easy mistake to make.
Hinett.
Thank you.
There we go. Well, thanks for taking time out of your super busy schedules to join us here on the Flyers podcast. Of course, both of you play for the Flyers women in WBBL Division 1. And for those that don't know, that's like the second tier of basketball here in this country. How is the season going so far?
Yeah, I mean, we had a bit of a rough start. I think definitely some growing pains with a new coach. But we're coming off, we had 2 wins against Cardiff back-to-back, and we just got a Reading double overtime, lost by 4. So big comeback for us, considering the previous scores. This past weekend was a little bit of a different story. We had a bit of a dip, but we're definitely just focusing on the positives and learning how to capitalize on the things that we're doing well. So
double overtime though.
Yeah. Oh, that was
dramatic.
Rough.
What happened?
Let's see. Veronica, who is our rebounding star, fouled out. Aurier, who's our defensive specialist, fouled out. So we definitely had guys that weren't necessarily used to playing big minutes, playing well into the 46-minute range of a game.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
So it was
Had me playing 5 at 5'7", so that was interesting.
the false 5, that was a fun play. Yeah.
I'll take it.
All guard lineup. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're playing the fastball.
Yeah.
5 out, that's it.
5 out, let them go 1-on-1. Perfect.
Yeah.
I guess, well, thanks for joining us on the podcast this week. And for those that don't know, the Flyers Women's program it's not a fully professional program like the men's team. Essentially, you are playing in the second tier of basketball, and you juggle your playing commitments with working as well, don't you?
Yeah.
Tell us more about what you do in life outside of basketball.
So I work as a football analyst for FIFA. Been doing that for like the past 2 years. So I've literally just come from work just now. So I sort of have to work that 9 to 5 and then train weekday evenings and then play on the weekend. So yeah, it's a pretty hectic schedule, I'd imagine, compared to like the guys' team. I'm sure they just train and play all the time. So yeah, it's quite different.
That's a cool job, though.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, I actually got to work on the World Cup recently. So I didn't actually go out to Qatar, but we were basically all based in Newport. So it was like collecting data on the World Cup. So that was pretty cool.
Qatar, Newport, pretty similar. You know what I mean?
Basically the same.
And Sarah, of course, you have your life outside of basketball as well.
Yeah, so I'm a civil engineer. I work in construction management and engineering. So I just recently got a job with a company in Scotland. So I'm working remotely at the moment. But they specialize in building whiskey distilleries. They're called Colorado Construction. So I've worked for them for about 5 months, end of last year. So yeah, I do that part-time right now. I also run a house-sitting business here in Bristol, which has been great to meet people. So I've done a lot of that, and it's been building community here in Bristol has been great with that. And then we both do the table officiating as well, so we do stats and everything. So I have a lot of odd jobs. I also work at the Flyers games too and listen to Sam yell over the speakers the entire night. So.
No, that is actually a cool job as well. I didn't know about the whiskey distillery company. That's really cool. Did you guys go and visit?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's construction management. They do some bespoke homes as well and some other developments as well, but they specialize in whiskey distilleries, which is obviously the biggest export up in Scotland. So it's quite the big business up there. I knew nothing about whiskey getting into it, so I'm learning as I go, getting kind of a first-hand touch at all of it, seeing it. So it's been really cool.
Awesome. Well, we are big fans of fresh water here on the podcast, aren't we, Sam? We
enjoy. Surely, being from over the pond, you prefer less of a whiskey, more of a bourbon.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, neither of them are really my thing. I'm more of a tequila girl myself. So
there we go. You mentioned about the house sitting as well. I've seen the doggos on Instagram. You sort of a big perk is when you sit, you look after the house. You also look after the pups.
I look after the dogs. Yeah, that's been great. I have a lot of animals back home, so it's definitely nice to kind of get my dog time, but not have the full-time commitment of an actual pet here, because that's a lot to balance with everything. But yeah, so I look mainly after people's houses they have animals that they've gone on vacation. So sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 2 weeks. But yeah, definitely a nice perk of it all. I get to go on dog walks and see places with that. So.
It sounds like you just don't want to rent it. You just want to move around people's houses. That's what it sounds like.
That's the fun part. I've stayed all over Bristol. I stayed in Yate, and I can tell you right now that's not somewhere I want to live. It's extremely inconvenient.
It is
Can't
far.
get anywhere.
That is miles away, isn't it?
Yeah, it was getting to training was a nightmare. The buses are incredibly inconvenient and just come at terrible times. At one point, they were just leapfrogging each other, and I was like, what is the point, Bristol? What are we doing?
So Marvin, if you're listening, we need better buses to Yate, all right?
Go on, Marv. And Chloe, obviously, you spoke about some of the work you do, but also you're running the Flyers women's Twitter account and the social media channels right now. And am I right in thinking you dabbled in a little bit of commentary as well at times?
Yeah, so when COVID hit, basically the league still carried on, but our team decided to stop halfway through the season. And NBL Live was still going out on live streaming games. So I basically got invited to go and commentate on my old team's game, which was the Wolves. So yeah, it was a really good experience. Something I'd definitely look to do again in the future. Yeah, I'd like to improve on it, because I know I said a lot of random things, and I said, yeah, definitely a lot, apparently, according to John Hobbs. So whenever I see him, that's the first thing he says to me is, yeah, definitely. So
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm always my worst critic when I do commentary as well, so I know exactly where you're coming from. It's not easy as it seems to get into the commentary side of things.
What's your tick, Joel? What's the one you'd always go back to?
I just repeat myself all the time, I find. And I'll say it now on the podcast, and you'll probably watch the game this weekend, and you'll be like, oh, this is exactly what he's doing.
Does repeat himself.
You'll hear me say the same thing like often throughout a game, and I have little habits and little periods where I'll say certain things over 2 or 3 games the same, and then I have a different period where I'll say something else, and it's a habit I'm trying to get out of. But
I'm trying to think of things I notice you say on it. I like it, but what was one of the ones you say? You've got these 2 sayings, and I've literally just forgotten what they are.
Probably something like, and he drains the 3. So something like that. Do you know what I mean? That's a very go-to one of mine.
It was when you left the mic on at halftime. Yeah, it was like, I feel like that might have been before Christmas, and I was like, oh my gosh, Joel's gonna say something. He's gonna say something wild.
No, I tell you what happened here. This is out of my control here, and I got a point. I don't know if it was Fred on the directing of this game.
Definitely Freddie, 100%.
It looks like it was Fred.
It might have been a parting gift from Ed, but he left my mic hot during the ad break, and I was just basically on the mic saying like, okay, when we come back, Gareth, we've got starting lineups, and then we go into, do you know what I mean? Very professional as always, but luckily, I am the ultimate professional when it comes to staying on air.
I'm glad it was you, because I don't know what would come out of my mouth if I said it. That would be bad.
Luckily we managed to make it through without any massive hiccups. We've got you both on here today because today is our International Women's Day celebration episode, and every year for International Women's Day there is a theme, and the theme for this year is Embrace Equity. What does that mean to the both of you? Embracing equity?
I think for me in my professional life, I'm definitely in a male-dominated field. I'm one of the only female site engineers in the company, and that's going to be something I'm going to pretty much be experiencing probably for the next 10 or so years as we phase in more women into these more technical positions within the engineering world and the construction world. It also actually happens to be National Women in Construction Week in America, so that's been a highlight for this week as well, on top of International Women's Day. But for me, embracing equity really within my professional life is just understanding that I can do the job just as well, and that I have just as much of an understanding as the next guy, even if they've, it doesn't matter whether or not I'm female or not, I can still do those technical positions, the down and dirty positions that, I'm in steel-toe boots and a hard hat all day, but that's where I like to be and what I'm really happy about, and making sure that women have every opportunity to be in those positions, because it's where I've always wanted to be. I haven't wanted to be behind a desk. I haven't wanted to be in the behind-the-scenes role, maybe in more of a marketing or a contracting role. I've always wanted to be on site and actually being able to put buildings up. That's what makes me happy and what I'm passionate about. So to me, that's kind of where that direction goes. But
do you still experience, or have you experienced, like people sort of treating you differently in the workplace? Yeah,
definitely. It also is a thing of I'm young as well. I'm 26, so there are a lot of guys who I'm coming in some of these positions in a management role where, they're maybe it's scaffolders, but they've been doing this job for 20 years, and they see a 26-year-old female jump on site like, there's no way she has any idea what she's talking about. But I think what I'm learning is knowing what you don't know is your biggest strength, and being able to know how to ask those questions and just be confident in not knowing something. And the reality is, for every one person that you come across that is going to think you're not maybe the best at what you do, you're going to come across 5 who are going to have faith in you. And I'm learning to trust that and know that there are the right people out there, and as long as you put yourself in a position to meet them as a woman, you're going to find all of those people that are going to push you forward in life. So I think it's just growing pains, isn't it? You got to be uncomfortable to be eventually comfortable. So,
and Chloe is obviously within your working world. Working in football in particular, it is a very male-dominated industry, and we've seen the progression of things like the Lionesses, the recent success of the Lionesses as well, and we're really seeing women in sport coming to the fore now, aren't we?
Yeah, no, definitely. When I first took my job at FIFA, I was the only female in my department. So it was me and probably 35 other males, which is quite intimidating when you first start. And you sort of have this imposter syndrome of am I actually good enough to be here, or was I hired because I'm a woman? That does go through your head. But since then, we've hired a few more. It's still not where I'd like it to be, but I think it's showing the progress over the 2 years that I've been with them. initially when I started, there was a few experiences that was kind of like things like kit. Like it was all ordered in men's sizes and men's fit, and it was like way too big for me, or like it was just a weird fit. And just, I don't know, little things like that. Like to you guys, it might not seem like a big thing, but like it does make an impact on like how you view that situation. And then touching on like the Lionesses, it's been so good to see like the rise of them. Like watching the Euros last year, like it was crazy the amount of support. Like I tried to get tickets to the semi-final and the final, and I couldn't get them, which was really annoying because I really wanted to go and watch that game. But yeah, it's crazy the amount of support. Like it's basically the same as what the guys got for the World Cup, which is really good to see. So.
Wasn't it I think we said this before on the pod, but the final of the Euros for the women was the most attended Euros match by men or women ever. Yeah. Which is crazy, isn't it? It's amazing. Yeah.
And then you still get people in the comments like slating it, like coming up with excuses, and it's just like, oh, give it a rest.
Yeah.
I think those are a lot of things you just talked about there, like with your kit and all the rest of it, or what you not kit, you know what I mean, like the stuff you have to wear that like lots of people, it's not like active, but it's just thoughtless, isn't it, rather than active.
Yeah, exactly that.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's been like a especially when we talk about the Flyers point of view and like and Bristol sport as a whole, there's been a huge integration across Bristol City and Bristol Bears recently. The women's teams are now joining up with the men's teams. They're all based in their respective like performance centres, and obviously like there's a lot of talk around the commercials around it, but essentially it's giving them everything they need to be successful and putting them in that first team environment. And they were talking. I think there was an episode of a podcast that went out today, and some City women players were saying, they spoke to Nigel Pearson, and he was just saying like, look, you're a first team, we're a first team, we're sharing this facility, we're giving you everything you need to be successful. And that's the sort of point where I feel like Flyers is a bit behind at the moment in terms of where we're at, but you look at where the women's program is right now and where the Flyers men's program was before Bristol Sport came involved. It's right on the cusp now, the women's program, and I feel like it could really take off. You talk about the future plans for the club with the new sporting convention centre down here at Ashton Gate as well. The future certainly is bright for Flyers basketball, isn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely the community for it and the support for it here, I think, which is a huge thing as well. But the reality is it comes down to money and support at the end of the day. There's you have to be given those resources, and I think I've definitely seen the growing pains from this team this year of where we are craving those extra kind of, even when it comes down to gym time, we get 2 practice sessions a week, which is an hour and a half each. So we get 3 hours of training a week, when realistically there's a funny divide in this division that we're in, because some of it's a lot of the EABL teams as well. So they're getting, they're around sport all day. They have shooting sessions in the morning. They have their lifting sessions, and that's not something that this team is granted access to right now, which I definitely think makes a difference. And I think seeing the talent that we have and the bones that we have on this team, and our coaches expressed the same sentiment, that it's so frustrating to see how much potential there is there. And even if we had that, extra session a week, but at the same time, we all work day jobs. So it's not like we can come in for a morning lifting session. We all have lives outside of basketball, and that's what also but the WBBL has done a great job of that as well, having more investment, that some of these women now, this is their full-time job. And especially you look at London Lions and the success that they've had on their women's side, that's a testament to what it looks like when you give women, the space and the resources and all of that to be able to play this sport at the highest level. And I think there's definitely the bones for it here in Bristol, and that once that push happens, I think it's going to be a really big thing for them.
Yeah, it's no secret that is the ultimate goal for the programme, is to bring the women's team into the Bristol Sport Group and to push them into the WBBL. And Chloe, you've been a player that's sort of been around the Flyers programme since you were very young, and obviously you've seen the development of the programme over the years. What would it mean for Flyers to eventually play in the WBBL one day?
Oh, that'd be amazing, to be honest. Like when I first started, there was probably 3 or 4 girls maybe. Like we didn't really have there wasn't a women's senior team, there wasn't, I don't know, under 18s, under 16s, everything that we have now. Like there was nothing of that. Like I trained with boys until I was about 13, and then you get to that age where you can't do that anymore and you have to go and find another club. And luckily I had my dad who would drive me like an hour to go and play somewhere else, so I could actually play in a team, like a girls team. So yeah, I think having WBBL and having that program for younger players to look up to is really like a really amazing thought, to be honest.
Yeah, and you speak about like the growth of the WBBL as a whole, and you mentioned London Lions and how much sort of cash investment the whole club has had, and they're playing women's international basketball now on the international stage. And you look at like Essex Rebels, some great things going on there, upping their game day experience. And just this past weekend, you look at I think Newcastle Eagles set the attendance record earlier in the season. This past weekend, Leicester Riders set the attendance record in WBBL, 1,312 was the
nice.
is the record crowd. But Sam, I don't know about you, but obviously we've had big games at Ashton Gate for the City women and the Bears women. I don't know about you, but I feel that that's a very good target for us to sort of work towards when we can get Flyers women down at Ashton Gate.
Yeah, right now we couldn't beat that just because we don't have space anyway.
Well, it's more than our BBL capacity, isn't it? But I don't know about you, but like City women, they had 5,752 at Ashton Gate for their game against Liverpool earlier in the season. The Bears women had 4,101 for their game against Harlequins in May last year. I honestly think that's that target of 1,312. I reckon we could beat that.
Let's do it, mate.
Long-term plans. I think that's like
it.
the ultimate goal. You sort of you talk about Flyers women coming into the Bristol Sport Group, setting the attendance record down at Ashton Gate would be massive.
Yeah,
it'd be awesome. Really great stuff. Like we spoke about like the big shift in women's sport, obviously with the Lionesses coming through, and we had them down here at Ashton Gate with the Arnold Clark Cup as well. And you spoke about the Flyers women's team and how there wasn't, they only just reformed back in 2015. Before that, there was like a 5-year gap, wasn't there? There wasn't actually a top flight women's team. And Tilly came back, Gareth Till, who obviously does the commentary with me, came in as the head coach. He had some chats with Coach K, and the Flyers women's team was reformed in 2015, and that's just sort of grown now from strength to strength.
Yeah, so that was actually my last year before I went off to uni. I heard that Flyers were getting a women's team back together, so I said, well, that makes more sense than driving an hour every week to go and play. So, I joined that team the first year that was back, and it was a really fun team to be a part of. I can't really remember how the season went, to be honest. I know we made playoffs, but that was about it, to be honest. We didn't win anything. So, it was a really good season. Then I went off to uni, and then in that time, they got some really good players like Flo Ward, Christina, and they won the league. So, that's a pretty big achievement. It's just gone strength for strength since it's come back.
Yeah, and not only the first team, but you look down the pathway. The junior girls program has grown massively. They're doing hubs now for the girls out in the schools. We spoke to Rodney in the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was the under-16s girls team. Was it last season that set that record?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had, so I coach with the under-16s and under-14s just on some assistant-based stuff, but it's been a blast working with those girls. They are a great group. I know I wanted to make sure they got to watch this so they know that the women are getting some recognition within the Bristol Sport range, because they come to a lot of the games, and it's so fun seeing them, and they all, hi, Coach Sarah. It's like the most fun having all the little ones, and Gracie was featured on Always Ballin' today. Yeah. She's an Always Ballin' rep, so it's just fun seeing those girls grow up. But I think at the same time, you want to make sure that they have somewhere to go in this program. And I think you take like Louisa, for example, who left us for
Ipswich.
There we go. Who we play this upcoming weekend. And I think as this continues to grow, there's so much talent here. It will be nice for them to have a program to stay in, and that we can keep people local and have that WBBL kind of stepping stone to work up to versus needing to go elsewhere. So I'm excited to see that growth for Bristol.
We've got some future stars in the youth programs.
Almost definitely. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, nice.
There's a lot
100%.
of them. Yeah, they're a feisty little group, though. I'll tell you. I remember myself at 16, and my goodness. So,
are you travelling to Ipswich, or are they coming here?
We're traveling to Ipswich.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
5 hours.
Long trip.
Yeah, that's not a great trip, that one.
No.
But obviously, and just before we move on to the sort of the next part of the pod, I mean, you look at the program as it is right now. Where would you both like to see how would you both like to see the Flyers women's program? The junior pathway and the first team program. How would you like to see that grow in the next, 3 to 5 years down the line?
I think just having a WBL team would be massive. But like Sarah said, we want that to have like an avenue for players to go through the program and like go up to the senior team. Like we've seen like Corey, Greg, like they do that in the men's program. We'd like to see that in the women's program. Like Louise has gone to Ipswich, Natalie a few years ago went to Nottingham. Like we don't want players to leave. Like we want them to stay and grow Bristol basketball.
Yeah, and I think, this season we've definitely grown our sponsorship range as well. So this year it's been a much bigger investment within it, which has made stuff a lot more comfortable for players, that we are fully sponsored. So that's, been, I think, seeing that stepping stone just this season, I think that there is a lot of growth for it. But obviously the WBBL, I don't know when the stadium will be finished, but I don't know how close that WBBL kind of reach is. That's not something that we've kind of, or at least the conversation that I've had has been kind of made clear to us. But, I think 3 to 5 years is a realistic goal. But I would like to see, Darren has talked, Coach, gosh, we're going to have to run for that. I just called him Darren.
We're running tomorrow.
Run some suicides for that one.
No.
My bad. Coach has talked about bringing in some new players and kind of starting that recruiting process. So I think as that grows and we're starting to bring players in and making this team a little bit stronger with respect to bringing some different names in, that'll make a big difference. But, we're at the moment we're fighting that bottom of the table spot, and that's kind of not where you want to be when you're looking at that WBBL goal. But, again, where it's so frustrating is the bones of this team is so good. And, we've got, under 16s and some of the under 18s coming up with us as well that have so much talent, like in Charlie and Brooke and a handful of those other girls that are coming up, and Alice on top of that, who doesn't even play with any of she only plays with the senior women. You've got Emma Bailey as well, and all those girls are still all under 18, and there's so much talent there that we'd love to be able to see them stay and grow within the women's program here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, fingers crossed. When the arena comes online and we bring the club together like we've seen with City and Bears, the future certainly does look bright indeed. Chloe, I just want to mention. Obviously, Flyers is a big part of your life. Your mum and dad are both volunteers with the club. Karen is doing the ticketing on game day at the front desk. Kevin's at the door as you walk in. So it really is a family love for the Bristol Flyers, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. When I first started, it was sort of just me and my dad going to watch games. This is back in the day before they even had like the red bleachers. It was like the small little ones. Like I remember like going to my first game and there was a spare seat right in front of Greg Street's mum, and we were looking like, oh, why has nobody sat there? We sat down within about 5 minutes of the game. We found out why, because it's just loud, it's got a hooter, like. But yeah, like ever since that point, we've been like coming to watch games. My parents got involved, obviously, like volunteering and stuff. They tried to go to as many away games as possible. Obviously with me playing, I can't go to as many as I'd like, but like if we have like a free day, like on a Sunday, for example, I know my parents are going up to watch Flyers play Cheshire this weekend, so I'd love to go, but I'm busy, unfortunately. But yeah, like they just love the Flyers, they love basketball. So it's just a big part of our lives.
Yeah.
Your mum and dad, big shout out to them, by the way. They're such legends. Number one thing on my list when I walk in is try and wind up your mum.
I think that's on everyone's list.
No, they are huge. They are huge followers of the Flyers, and like we say, without our volunteers, the club is nothing really. So massive shout out to them and all the volunteers that help out, on Flyers game day and make sure that the club is where it is right now. We actually got a photo of you and Greg Street. We can put up on screen here, and I think this one was taken. Was it maybe with the Bromley game or maybe the Greg Street testimonial?
Yeah, the Matt Bromley game last year. Yeah.
How much of an inspiration has a player like Greg been to your sort of basketball career? Because he's been a guy who's come through the whole, similar to yourself, is started in playing in Bristol at a young age and going up through into the first team. Yeah,
no, definitely. Like when I first started, Greg was like coaching Saturday mornings. He was coaching under 16s, things like that. So we'd have him coach us and then we'd go and watch him play like on the weekend. Like it's great to have that role model, and like especially someone from Bristol, like it just makes it that much more special. So yeah, I'd love to sort of have those kind of role models in the women's program as well. But yeah, Greg was big in my development, and part of the reason why I just love the Flyers so much.
Yeah. Well, your parents have been in touch with the podcast, by the way. I was going to raise this at one point. So that was a photo of Chloe in Greg Street not too long ago.
Oh God.
We do have
what's coming.
We do have some photos of a young Chloe
man.
playing basketball with the Flyers junior program. Here you are, right here.
Are they some and one sneaks there?
Yes, the OG and ones.
Absolute classics. How old would you have been here, Chloe?
I think probably like 9 or 10. That was probably when I first started. So yeah, probably around that age. Yeah.
That's the red and white Baden as well, Joel. That we go on about.
Classic.
Love that bad boy.
Amazing. That is a classic ball. I always remember that one as well. I think we've got one more photo we could bring up as well, Fred. If you can get up on screen. Is it? Here it is. A very young Chloe. The facials on this one are a treat if you're watching the video version of the podcast.
Oh dear.
What are you shouting there, you reckon?
I don't know, to be honest. This is when I was a lot younger. I was a bit smaller, so I was sort of playing point guard. So I was probably just shouting at people, telling them where to be. I don't know. This is actually when I was playing for Southwest. We were at a tournament. I think it was out in Sweden. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I went to Sweden, went to Poland. Both great experiences. You sort of just get to play like random clubs from like around Europe and stuff.
Love that. That's so good.
That's awesome. Well, shout out to the Hinett's for sending through those photos. Very much appreciated, as always, here on the podcast.
Joe, actually. No?
Yeah, I was going to say, good work on the pronunciation.
Great stuff. And then, Chloe, obviously, we've got to touch on you going to Worcester University, of course. You actually played against the Flyers when you were in Div 1. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was mad. Because when I went to Worcester, they were in Division 2. So, yeah, whenever we faced them, it was in the Cup. So it was always like quite a big game. Like, obviously, for me personally, playing against my hometown club, but also like the players that I played with like a couple of years ago. It was always a big game, and I think even though we were a Division 2 side, we always put them through their paces, and like we took it close. And yeah, I feel like I always played well in those games. So they're always fun experiences.
Yeah, and it's come full circle now, back here with the Flyers and pushing on with the Div 1 program. It's great to see. Yeah. Sarah, obviously, a bit about your background. Obviously, people will notice by your accent that you're not from Bristol. You're originally from Utah, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I'm originally from Utah. I moved to Newcastle in 2014, so I spent 4 years at Northumbria and played
from
up
one
there.
weird accent to another weird accent.
Yeah, one to another. It took me a long time there would be times I was in taxis and the taxi drivers would be talking to me and it's a smile and wave situation because I would get nothing out of those.
Give us your best impression.
Oh, that's not happening. I'm not going to pull a Mike Miller.
Giving us a Geordie accent here on the podcast.
Go on, try one thing.
Yep. I think the only thing I've stuck with is the "How the lasses." Like that's the only one I can keep, but I can't even get that out in a Newcastle accent. It was in there. One of my best friends up there was Scottish, and I had like a Scottish accent down for a second, and that's completely gone too. So, I'm an American. I'm sorry, and I bounce between American accents. Like somehow, when I'm speaking with other Americans, I sound like I'm from somewhere deep south. I turn into a Southern someone, which I'm not from the South. I'm from Utah. So don't know why that happens, but my accent varies for some reason in that respect. But no Newcastle accent. But yeah, I spent 4 years there, so long time. And obviously, I get a lot of smack for that. Chris Hill was, when the Eagles were here last, he was like, "How does that feel? How does that feel?" And I was like, "I'm a Bristol fan now. I got the shirt on. I got the coat. Like, leave me be. I'm sorry."
And was it 2 spells in with WBBL with Newcastle that you had? Was it 1 or 2 spells you had?
2. So I blew my ACL the second year in the Netherlands, and then I re-signed the COVID season. I went to Newcastle, but I didn't end up getting any games, and I got hurt again in practice and needed my knee reconstructed again.
2 reconstructions on the same knee?
Yeah, so I blew it.
Gosh.
I did, 2 years of WBBL up there, and then after England, I went to the Netherlands to pursue my master's, and I played out there, similar league, so Division 1 type league. It's called the Promotion Division out there. And yeah, that second season I played with Das Delft, and I went to drive middle and I went to spin back to the basket, and my teammate had just stepped on my shoe, so my foot stayed and I fell, so knee caved, and I tore my ACL, my MCL, and my meniscus all in one go. So yeah, that was. I have never wanted my mom so badly in my life.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that was
my
2019, and then I went home for surgery. And that following season, I re-signed with Chris Bunton up there for Eagles, and I felt really good, felt healthy, and just unfortunately took a hit in practice. They didn't actually re-tear it, just stretched out the repair that was already there, so the knee basically just wasn't functional anymore. So in theory, I could have kept playing, but I would have just wrecked my knee basically. So went home, had it done again, spent a year at home working for a construction company at home and getting back in shape, and I just chose to do it differently, got a new trainer, and just approached it differently, and ended up back healthy. So this is my first full season back. I joined halfway through the season last season when I moved out here in January. And yeah, so I play in a brace. I get a lot of robo leg comments, but just really, it's not like I feel really stable. I feel healthy. I more just have trust issues on anybody else because it's never been that I've like fallen and my knee caved. It's all been impact. So I just don't want that to happen again.
Yeah, whenever I think about those kind of injuries, we'll get the heebie-jeebies, you know what I mean?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Well, it's great to have you back on the court with us, particularly in the Flyers uniform now, not an Eagles uniform.
Well, I was wearing the coat for the longest. That was the thing, because I have the Kappa coat in an Eagles like logo, so everybody was making fun of me.
It's despicable, isn't it?
Burn it.
Should walk into practice with it, and we just like, no.
We should have bought it on the Flyers podcast and burnt it here in the studio. That'd been quite big.
That's what Andreas said. He said, as soon as you get the Flyers coat, I'm going to need you to burn that. So.
Go on, Coach. Love that.
Coach.
Great stuff.
You should just cut it out. It's roughly the same. Stuck a little sticker over it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, on that note of heebie-jeebie injuries, I think Sam, should we move on to this week's news around the BBL?
Let's do it.
This is the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
I don't want to think about that anymore.
What's your worst injury, Joel?
Well, I never really used to play that seriously, to be honest with you. It was nothing really too seriously at all, really, thank God.
Yeah, fair enough.
What about you?
The worst one I saw, I was actually I was playing in a game where someone shot faked, someone jumped up to block them, that they were like over the top of them, so the person with the ball ducked, and they landed over the top of them with a straight arm, and it literally part of
don't
the
even
skin
talk about it.
Nope.
Split, and they bent their elbow
Oh my
fully
God.
back the other way, and I was like, I think I know I wasn't sick, but I felt very sick, Joel. That was the worst thing I've ever seen.
Anyway,
Back to the news.
let's get to this week's news. Time for us to take a look at what's been going on around British basketball this week, and we've got to start by talking about those two games at the weekend.
Yeah,
Bristol
against
Flyers.
Newcastle.
Newcastle Eagles. Well, let's talk about Friday's game first.
Joel, what on earth happened, mate?
Down by 17, 3 minutes to go in the fourth.
Were we
rallied-
down by 17 with 3 minutes to go?
3 minutes to go in the third. 3 minutes to go in the
Yeah, I
third.
was gonna say,
Down 17,
flipping
3
heck.
minutes to go in the third, and a massive comeback. They rallied back in the fourth. It was Jelani Watson-Gale it's a big run. Tevin Olison hit some back-to-back threes, and then Jelani Watson-Gale had that reverse layup with...
Well, that was tasty, wasn't it?
What was it? 30 seconds to go to give us our first lead of the game, and then we literally stole the game on the road. I don't think you can describe it any other way, because we were shooting poorly from the three-point line, we shot poorly from the foul line, our field goal percentage was ridiculously poor.
Say it as it is, mate. Come
and we
on.
somehow managed to come away with the win. So
Did they miss 2 free throws? Is that right at the end as well?
well, right at the very end, it was Kyle Johnson. It was late drama. It was a foul by Leslie Smith, and they had a chance to tie it with a single free throw or win with 2. And Kyle Johnson goes and misses them both.
Oh, that is bad.
So yeah, that was crazy. And then obviously we held on and shot free throws for the win. Sarah Chloe, did you watch this game? What did you make of it?
Yeah, I watched bits and pieces. I actually went to my first Bristol Bears game that night. So yeah,
I saw
Oh,
it.
you were at a
made-
magical game then.
I was, yeah. I definitely. We had it on the phones watching it, and I was watching the live stats. So I didn't get the full drama of it all, but I did look at the stats afterwards, and I think maybe we're a little nice, because it maybe was not just that was a tough game for them, but I'm glad
was.
they managed.
Yeah, somehow, man. I think that shows the sign of like a tough team, though. When things aren't going your way, and then you can turn things around like that and come away with a win. I don't know about you, but I've not seen in the past a Flyers team would probably crumble in that situation,
big
being
time.
down 17 and third. This team just has grit and determination. I just haven't seen anything like it.
It is one of those where you don't feel bad for Newcastle, but they should have won that game probably, shouldn't they?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's tough for them as well because they're pushing for playoffs, so that would have been a massive win for them as well. But we'll take it. Big performances across the board. I mean, no player actually finished with an efficiency rating of above 15 in that game. I think it was for
both teams?
No, for Flyers.
For Flyers, right.
No, Flyers. I think VJ King had 12 points, 10 rebounds. Thomas Bell, 10 points, 9 rebounds. Tevin Olsen, 10 points at the bench, including a pair of massive back-to-back threes in that fourth quarter run. Yeah, I mean, those back-to-back free throws just proved costly for them in the end, and they're at home as well. So
practice your fundamentals, kids.
yeah, that's exactly why you practice your free throws. And then on to Sunday, and obviously Sunday's game, we were up by 10 in the third quarter, and we went down by 16. There was 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. We were trailing by 16, and they just rallied back to make it a 2-point game, and almost thought it was going to happen again, Sam.
My goodness me. And it was dramatic, wasn't it? Sunday afternoon games are always tricky. They just are. People have had their weekend. It's an early tip-off, so, you don't really get a chance to have a full day, so a lot of people are sort of still bringing their kids along, all the rest of it. And I think it is a tough sort of time for a game. But we let it slip, Joel.
It was. We called that timeout. I think you see on the court, players weren't getting back in transition. Coach called that timeout and sort of cracked the whip a little bit, and you could see the intensity just shift coming out that timeout. They went on a massive run. It was a 2-point game, and just sort of left it too little, too late in the end.
Dirk Williams as well. He just hits threes for fun.
Yeah, and Ramon Fletcher hit those shots in the third as well. He really took over for them. Chloe, you were on the table for that game, weren't you?
Yeah, I was doing live stats for that. Yeah, it's crazy. Especially sitting obviously you guys sit on the table now with commentary, but you just get the best view in the house.
You do.
But I find doing stats, because I was on the laptop, you don't watch half of it. The person that's calling for you will watch it, but you're just sat looking at the laptop for half the game, so you kind of miss some of the drama. Because
there's two of you, isn't there? There's the live stats. You have someone who's head down the laptop, putting all the numbers in left, right and centre, and someone else's job is literally to sit next to you, talk into your ear, saying rebound number 9, assist 12, field goal miss, etc., all that kind of stuff. So you have to almost tune out the crowd and be able to listen to someone next to you when the arena's so noisy. That must be really tricky.
Yeah, it's really difficult actually. Usually I do it with Owen, and he usually just does the laptop, so I'm pretty happy I get to watch the game. I remember doing the playoff semi-final when Mike Miller hit that shot to win it. Bex, the other stats girl, she was sat next to me. She dug her hand into my leg. Obviously, as table officials, you kind of have to remain a bit neutral, but she just dug her hand into my leg, and I was just sat there oh my god, what have I just witnessed?
It really was an incredible night that night. I think that's probably, if you had to ask me what my favourite Flyers moment ever was, that's got to be top of my list.
You're always going to rub that in my face, mate, because I wasn't.
You weren't there for that game as well. Yeah. I wasn't even commentating for that game. I was running socials for that game, so I got to experience it in all its glory without having to worry about nailing a call as well.
Stop going on about it, mate. All right.
It was really good.
Your first her first BBL stats game though was the Plymouth game that everybody got ejected.
Oh wow, the one down in Plymouth.
Oh no way!
Yeah,
that was her first one.
Double overtime, right?
I wasn't even properly qualified at that point, but Owen was you're good enough. Well, you can do it. I go down there and it's just absolute madness.
Yeah.
Obviously the game stopped for about 10 minutes because the referees did 20 technical fouls and ejections and stuff, and it was wild. Yeah. But then once I did that, I was well, if I can get through this, doing live stats for a normal game is pretty easy.
Yeah, and it was just 5-on-5 for the rest of the game, so you didn't have to worry about any other
no subs. Yeah.
And it went double overtime as well, crazy.
I love it.
Of course, the 2 games at the weekend does mean Flyers are in the playoffs, which means we have another home game to sell, our playoff quarter final. Keep an eye on the Bristol Flyers website for ticket information on that, by the way. We're looking to we want to try and get them on sale against an opponent and a date TBC. We roughly know the weekend it's going to be. It's going to be the the first weekend after the end of the regular season, potentially on the Saturday or the Sunday or even the Friday. We don't know yet. So keep an eye on the website. We can probably go on sale with a provisional date, which might change once we find out who our opponents are. We'll do a priority period for season ticket holders and members so they can get their tickets before they go on general sale. And if the tickets sell anything like our games this season are sold so far, they will be probably the hottest ticket in town, so do keep an eye on the website.
And obviously we want to finish as high as we can, but as long as we finish top 4, we'll get the home court, won't we? So
yeah, exactly. I think I was looking at BBL maths. There's like a 0.5 or 0.1% chance of us not finishing outside the top 4 right now, so it's certainly
take those odds.
Yeah. It does look favourable. Shout out BBL maths. Other news around the league. Obviously, the BBL Trophy finalists are now set. So Caledonia Gladiators will face the Cheshire Phoenix. Sam, I don't know about you, but not many people are expecting these two teams to be in the trophy final this year.
I don't want to talk about it because we went on about it so much. How we were booking Airbnbs to go up, and then it was like, oh, we'll see. And every of the favourites have been knocked out, Joel. It's sad, isn't it?
Yeah, but if anything, it's a good case to keep the trophy. And then there was talk about them removing the trophy. The rumours floating around about them this being the last season of the BBL trophy. But when you got the surprise and the drama of these sort of teams a bit lower down the league making final, like that's certainly a good case to keep it, right?
Let me hear from you, Joel. Who would you like to win the final?
I mean, I don't want any of them to win, really, but I'll probably go with Cheshire.
Will you?
Yeah, I'd like Cheshire to win it. I think they obviously they won it last year, didn't they? So they're defending their title. So I think if they can defend the BBL trophy for 2 years straight, that'd be amazing.
I quite like the Caledonia Gladiators media man. Is it Mark?
Mark Campbell.
Yeah, Mark Campbell. I think he's funny. So I still want Phoenix to win because he was going to give us some hate if they beat us down here, mate. So yeah, let's go Phoenix.
Let's go Phoenix. Great stuff. Other news around the league, congratulations are in order for Nassim Lajimi. Of course, he signed his very first professional contract to join his Tunisian hometown. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here, but here we go. Étoile Sportive de Sahel.
I think you did very well there, mate.
I don't know. Someone tell me if I got it wrong, but congratulations to Nassim. Massive achievement for him because, again, Chloe, he's a player like yourself and Greg. He's been through the Flyers junior level, and now to sign his first pro deal with his hometown club's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's big. I remember when Nassim first joined. He's tiny, and he's a couple of years younger than me. So I've seen him sort of grow up through the years. And when he went to America and things like that, I think I always knew that he was going to be a special player, and it's great to see him sign his first professional contract.
Yeah, we had him on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, Sam, in our Flyers 2 episode. Great episode. So we certainly do wish him well with his future adventure, and we'll be following his progress as well.
100%.
It'd be great to see. A couple more bits to bash through before we do Word of the Week. Signing news. Kofi Joseph signs with Manchester Giants. Of course, he didn't play in that game against us on Sunday because they're waiting registration. I imagine he'll be registered in time for the game against Manchester next Wednesday. Of course, we travel up there to the National Performance Centre, and you're coming, aren't you, Sam? You're coming with us.
We got the away call up, Joel. Are we taking pod on the road? Is that happening?
Well, we need to have a production meeting about this at some point because we're supposed to drop the podcast every Wednesday. Next Wednesday we have a game, so maybe we'll chat about it after we finish recording.
Yeah, sorry guys, not gonna have a meeting on air, are we, Joe?
Who knows? We may drop it Tuesday, may drop it Wednesday, may drop it Thursday. Yeah. We've got a game on Friday as well, though, so it might be tricky.
We'll keep you guessing, guys.
Yeah, we'll keep you guessing. Other news around the league. Best of luck, around British basketball. Best of luck to UE tonight, who are in their Final Four game. They're playing Newcastle. If you listen to the podcast on Thursday, you'll know the result. But of course, Corey Samuels and Malcolm Delpech both playing for UE. We're actually all heading down there after this podcast, aren't we? Because you're both on the table.
Yeah.
And Drew Lasker's coaching, so...
Is he?
Yep, he's the Team Northumbria coach, so that'll be a...
I'm going to get shouting at him across the side.
We need to get Amy Atkinson down at the game.
Yeah. We should. We had them meet virtually, didn't we, on the podcast? But get them meet face to face. That'd be amazing.
Oh, we got to really get him some smack talk, big time.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
It's funny because Drew's just the nicest.
I know.
When I tore my ACL the first time, and I was really struggling with okay, is this the end of my life? Am I never going to play basketball again? Is this the end? Drew's words of advice. I mean, we're not particularly close, but just he took time out to have a conversation with me, and he's honestly like one of the nicest people I've met. And I obviously spent a couple years up in Newcastle with him while he was playing while I was up there, so I got to see the heyday of Drew.
We get it. You like Newcastle. We get it.
I'm just saying, there's some
No,
nice people,
we get it.
you know?
I think she's on the wrong podcast.
Burn the coat. Burn the coat.
We want to see this coat burn.
We'll start that hashtag.
Maybe that's what we can do next week.
We'll burn the coat. We'll put a video out on social with a follow-up saying it's happened.
Let's do it in the game tonight in front of Drew.
So best of luck to the UE team. I didn't realise Drew was coaching. That's amazing.
Yeah, I like that.
And last bit of news from us. New prize draws have been added to the Flyers loyalty scheme. There's now a 17-18 signed and framed jersey, the one that we had up here on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. You can now enter the prize draw for your chance to win that. Massive prize.
I want to win that, Joel.
I want to win that. That's an amazing prize. Of course, other prizes that you can redeem right now. You can also redeem for a birthday message from a player or the chance to shoot on court at half-time during a Bristol Flyers game. Great prizes up for grabs. We actually had our very first winner claim their prize at Sunday's game. If we can get it up on screen here, Fred. This is Flyers fan Brian Packer. He won himself a signed home jersey this year. He collected it at the Sunday's game against Manchester Giants, and yeah, you can win prizes as well by being on the Flyers loyalty scheme, available for season ticket holders and members.
Get the photo back up, Fred. Chloe's in the background.
I look so excited.
That's awesome. Just sat there at the table, just waiting for half. I think that's half time, right?
Yeah, yawning. Look, flipping it, Chloe.
I've got nothing to do at half-time.
That's
Like,
true.
she's just sat there.
Yeah, there you go. And that's it from us for news. And now you are up to date with this week's news.
This is the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Right, one more thing we've got to do before we get to the mailbag. And, well, obviously, we've got to do Word of the Week, but we don't have to spin the wheel this week because we don't have a home game this weekend. However, this past week, the word was indubitably.
Which isn't a word. It's
But
not a word.
It's not a word, but I can confirm I've actually said indubitably already once this season. I just forgot to remove it from the wheel earlier in the
He
season.
reminded you.
I just went back because after we spun the wheel last week and it landed on indubitably, I was like, I've definitely said this before. However, I got it in again. I got it in again, and also it was even tougher this week because it was just me solo comms. There was no Gareth.
I saw that.
So I couldn't ask him a question, or I couldn't say indubitably something he was saying. So I managed to get it in the build-up to the game when we're talking about team news, and we were talking about Kofi Joseph's not playing. Sam, shall we take a listen?
A key member of that Plymouth City Patriots team last year. He averaged 20 points a game. Indubitably one of the best offensive players in the BBL this season.
I love.
Got it in, didn't he?
Joel's basically like he's building up his portfolio of commentary. One day maybe he's going to do it as a job. Who knows? But he's going to be giving out these tapes to people to judge him on, and they're like, he says words that aren't in the English language, so we can't use him.
I think I nailed that quite all right, actually. It's quite. I don't think anyone realised. If you're a podcast listener, you'll know exactly what you know. What I mean, you know. But if you're not a podcast listener, I don't think you noticed that. Like we say, no word this week. However, we do have a space on the wheel. I don't know if any of you two have a word you'd want to chip in or add to the wheel when we spin it next week. 'Cause if not, we'll ask our guest for the following week to give us one. What do you reckon? Anything?
See the
No.
wheel
No.
ticket in your head.
Maybe Utah.
No,
No.
maybe.
Or maybe
Absolute.
Jazz. Utah Jazz. No, you don't want to talk about them?
No, I like them, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an easy one, isn't it?
Okay, we're not adding Newcastle either.
Jazzy.
Yeah, we're not adding Newcastle to the time.
Burn that jacket, I
if you
reckon,
can't
should
think of
go up
anything,
there.
it's all good. We'll ask the fans to send us some suggestions as well. If you've got an idea of a word that you want to send in to us to add to Word of the Week, to add to our wheel, you can tweet it in at Bristol Flyers. We're at Bristol Flyers everywhere, so if you don't want to tweet us in, you can do it on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you like.
You're listening to the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Right, that is the bulk of the podcast wrapped up. Now time for the dessert. We got to do our mailbag segment, and as we do on every episode of the Flyers podcast, we ask our fans to send in questions to our studio guests. We pick the best questions to then put to the guests. Sam, would you like to go with the first? Well, there's a couple of questions, and I know we're quite short for time here, but maybe would you like to go with this one here?
Already mentioned on the pod, Amy Atkinson. She on Twitter wants to know, what do you think can be done to encourage more girls into basketball?
Ooh, I mean, I would say definitely more. I think seeing it on social media and being able to come to games and seeing, because I mean, I've even met people who asked how much tickets were, and I'm like, it's free to come to our games. It's literally free to just come and show your support for us. And I think it is just as simple as girls do need to see women playing and performing at a high level to know that that's a pathway for them. So I think just coming to games and just showing your support in that way, and social media makes a difference, obviously. So
yeah, of
things like
course.
that.
I'm itching to get my hands on the Flyers Women's social channels, of course.
As are we.
It's taken up too much of my time, Joel. You need to.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the day Bristol Sport can just say we're now doing Flyers Women socials at our end, and it'd be amazing. We could do some really great content, things like joint media days, things like kit launches, all that stuff would be awesome.
You'll just be there liking each other's tweets from your own different accounts.
They'll be tweeting ourselves from each account.
I know you will.
Yeah.
Having an argument with yourself.
Well, if you can't watch the games in person, because we actually do stream them on the YouTube channel as well. So Bristol Flyers YouTube, if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, it's on this channel. So just have a little search around the channel and you'll find some of the past games up on there as well. You can watch them back on demand.
And we are on Instagram at Bristol Flyers Women, so all of our games are posted on there. Thanks
Shout out
to Chloe. So
Yeah. Doing a great job. It's not an easy job especially trying to balance that. I couldn't imagine doing socials with the full-time job as well. It literally is a full-time
It's
job.
literally your job.
It literally is my job.
Your job.
Some content. I guess this kind of links through to the last question. Owen Parker's been in touch. He said, what would you like to see from the club in particular to develop the women's and girls program?
That's a big question.
Yeah, that is a big question. I think probably right now one of the big things is a lack of coaches. I think they're across the board. We're just struggling because it's not, a lot of these coaches are in volunteer positions and it's not a paid position. So again, they have full-time jobs and it's just out of their volunteer time to come and spend this time with these teams. So definitely probably bringing in more coaches. Obviously, our coach, Darren, we're going to have to run again for that one. He's just doing this and that he has other stuff to do. This is just his volunteer time. So, I think more coaches would make a huge difference because, these under 16s, under 14s, I know we're all struggling. There's been a handful. They haven't even been getting the same coach, from training to games. So I think that lack of consistency definitely can sometimes end up having a negative effect. But, there are a lot of good people to volunteer their time, but I think it would help a lot to have an excess of coaches versus a struggle to find coaches type of thing.
Yeah. We kind of spoke about it, didn't we, on the pod last week? I mean, but the coaches, but also facilities as well is always a big hurdle.
Yeah.
With it's the same with all basketball, men's and women's. It's just finding enough basketball specific facilities to be enable us to hold all that basketball. You talk about the men's program, the women's program, having all the junior teams and the first teams all training. It's just finding that space, isn't it? It's a real hurdle for basketball in this country.
It's so tricky. Why do you keep trying to bring Chloe under the bus with you when you keep saying Darren's name? You're like, we're going to have to run for that?
Because
You're going to be the one that has to run.
She's injured,
I'm
so
injured, so it's
push-ups.
actually Chloe.
Just push-ups.
There we go.
Yeah. He really got mad at us the other day, though. He was like, it's not Darren when we're in practice,
I think
Coach.
this is like a women's basketball thing, though, because I've always called my coaches by their name.
Yeah.
I've never called a coach. Like, that's a bit weird to me.
Yeah.
I call Coach K Coach.
Yeah, I've always said coach as well. I never really say Andreas, to be honest with you.
I didn't know that was his name for years.
But he's not saved in my phone book as coach. He is saved in my phone book as Andreas.
Yeah.
Because that'd probably be a step too far.
Yeah.
We've had a question come through here from Kate Bailey. She's been in touch on Instagram, and she asked a number of questions. The first one is, who do you enjoy playing on court with the most?
Nice.
Oh.
Who do I enjoy? The most.
Tough question, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
someone's getting disappointed.
Well, I think it varies like game to
Better say
game
me.
because like anyone can sort of like go off.
Yeah.
I mean, recently it's just fun to play with Veronica. She's
a
I think
beast.
she got 21 boards in the last game, which
Whoa.
is insane.
Yeah, she has been balling out. I've seen her stats online, and also I've got to give her a shout out for some of her content she's been doing as well,
Oh,
because
she is sick.
her content's been amazing. She does photos, she does videos, and she's always sending me through bits from around the club. So not only the women's program, but some of the junior teams as well. She's been at the UE games, she's been at the SGS Basketball Academy games. Her content's on point. Her video stuff, her photo stuff's amazing. amazing. And also she's doing that whilst playing as well. So
She's also a gas engineer as well, so she has quite the cool job outside of that as well. So she's she was working in Germany, but now she's based here in Bristol. But her gas company is based in Germany.
amazing.
So yeah,
So many things you guys do.
So many. I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And she also asked,
Oh God.
this is for Chloe. She says, "You're such a good player. What are you doing on the bench?"
That's not really for me to answer, I don't think.
Maybe one for Darren.
Yeah, Coach Joel,
Coach.
Coach D.
Sorry, Coach. Here's a super important question here from Raffin Bloom on Instagram. Gold
Shout out,
or
Raff.
gold or haze?
Gold
or
or
Hayes?
Hayes?
Oh, Hayes.
Raph knows the answer to this. It's Hayes.
Hayes.
Raph is one of my uni friends. She's from Bristol. She knows the answer is Hayes.
I have to agree with you on this one. I think I do. Well, yeah. I think a haze is nicer to drink than a gold.
Have you ever
Like,
tried a Katie?
Yeah, it's too strong for me.
What is that?
Oh, I was
Thatcher's Katie.
on a
It's like a
Friday.
sweet cider.
On a Friday at the end of the about 4 o'clock, there's a beer fridge, and we're allowed to have a beer from the beer fridge or whatever, which is great.
The freshwater fridge.
Fresh water fridge,
Yeah.
and I had a Katie, and I was just having it, and it was fine. And then like we finished, and they were like, "I'll have another one." So I had another one. I was halfway through it, and I was feeling very fresh watered up, and I was like, "What is going on?"
Very
and I looked,
hydrated.
they're 7.5%, and I was like, "What is going on?" Because I was walking home, Joe.
Yeah, right. Great stuff. Right, last question. This one's from Zoe Thompson. Shout out Zoe. And she says, what advice would you give to the juniors who are just starting out on their playing journey?
Oh, wow. Just take every opportunity that you have. Play as often as you can. Like, you'll probably never... Like, once you get past a certain age, you don't get the opportunity to play, every single day. Like, when I was at uni, I trained twice a day. Like, coming from that to having a full-time job and you only train twice a week, like, it's a big difference. So yeah, just make the most of like every opportunity. Every time you step on the floor, like, make the most of it.
Yeah, I would say similarly, like, just take advantage of every opportunity you're given. And I think especially, there's a lot more access to coaches online and to reaching out to players as well, and seeking that advice. Like, really do take advantage of that at that young age, because I know at 16 I didn't have a lot of support with respect to what I wanted to do next. Bless my mom for saying, if this is what you're going to do, you need to start talking to the right people. And she threw me in the right rooms and kind of threw me in the deep end to make sure I could pursue it the way I wanted to pursue it, and at both the academic and the athletic level. But, knowing that basketball isn't forever, especially in the women's game, depending on how long you want to go with it, knowing that school matters too, and taking care of business so that you can pursue basketball at the level that you want to, I think is probably my biggest takeaway there that I've learned.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice. Stay in school, kids.
And get a killer shot fake as well. That's my advice.
There we go. I think that's a great place to wrap up things on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here on the podcast, and a best of luck with the rest of your season.
Yeah.
And we're all going to head off down to UE now and watch the UE team hopefully make the Bucks final. What do you reckon to that, Sam?
I'm looking forward to it, mate. Can't wait to give Drew Lasker some fun
Great
words
stuff.
as well.
Well, before we go, just one more thing we've got to do is a bit of housekeeping. If you are enjoying the podcast, do give us a rating and a review. Do like, comment, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. We're with you every single Wednesday on your podcast feed. Like we said, Sam, we do need to chat about next week, about what we're going to do for next Wednesday, because maybe we take it on the bus. I chat to Mike Edkins.
Yeah,
Maybe we take it to the game. Maybe we drop it on Thursday, Tuesday. Just keep an eye. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll tweet. We'll just put a tweet out when it's going to drop, and
Pretty
we'll let you know
smart,
what it's going to do, because we have no idea what the next episode is going to be for next week right now. But some great episodes coming up soon, so watch this space. We're in some good talks over future episodes, and you will not be disappointed. Great stuff. Sam, anything else you want to add before we wrap this show up?
I was going to say, actually, based on the last thing with the comments and stuff, I was with Rebecca Tregarthen, who's one of our player sponsors this week, and she was trying to work out how to send comments in, and so I commented on our last podcast basically saying, I love Joel so much and I hate Sam so much. So I enjoyed that. But that's from Rebecca Tregarthen, but I actually wrote it. So
thanks for that, Rebecca. Appreciate your support. Great stuff. Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Bristol Flyers podcast. We'll be back same time next week with another episode of the pod.